music stuff.
We're live.
Oh no.
All right, I'm
Oh,
gonna
no.
see how.
Live. Nobody told me this was going to be live.
It's
No, I
live.
didn't know either.
Oh,
Yeah, we're
this
gonna
is-
see
this
it
is a
again.
huge-
Live?
This is a huge mistake.
Live, I'm leaving.
See how many.
No delay, no nothing. Just
Absolutely not.
live.
Way too many things go wrong when you're live.
Yeah, this is our COVID garden, Lisa and I tore, because the backyard was, if you would have been here a year ago, it was completely different.
Can you call it something other than a COVID garden? That makes it,
Yeah.
makes
Well,
it sound
that's what she
contagious.
said.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't want to walk through the COVID
You don't want to walk through it. You just admire it from
We're all wearing a hat.
a socially distant
Hazmats.
way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, we
Or
got
what he
10
means
with
is
us.
that it was an opportunity to, when things shut down for a few weeks, and we just all went our separate ways and stayed home. Right around a year ago now.
Sure.
A little over a year ago.
Sure.
There was the opportunity for them to start doing, and then continue to do
All summer.
something they've been wanting,
That's
wanting to do. We had
Well,
the
when
same
we get
thing.
done,
Heather
we'll
and I
do
had
that.
Oh,
projects.
hi, John.
Same thing.
Brian
that?
Edward Eade is
Same
with
thing.
us.
Heather and
Oh,
I had projects. We did stuff at my house.
Vicki
we did
Horton.
stuff at her house. I mean, it was like, well, gonna do something.
Sure, to occupy yourself during
Yeah.
a period of time.
Well, we've
I organized all my albums.
never had time in 10 years. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, there's still areas that are still a mess. I mean, we've cleaned that up, but it hasn't been redone. But that's one of the reasons, we've had several people this week ask us about, oh, you guys aren't opening up, you're not opening up. And Lisa and I have been trying to, rather than just say, no, we're not, or whatever, to come up with the right thing. And I think she kind of hit on it that first it gives us some time, but, we don't have the help either. Jody's down to one day.
But
we don't
you want to go ahead and introduce?
Oh.
We got 22 people.
Okay.
Hi, 22 people. Hi.
Hi, 22. Hi,
Hi.
Pat.
But
22 for the
anyway,
50.
we just don't have the personnel, so we just choose to do this, plus it gives us our time off. Well, tonight, everybody, we're here with our friend Jim Mertes from Mertes and Mertes. Is it associates or just
Mertes and Mertes.
Mertes? We thought that we would be very interesting because we're pretty like-minded going through this pandemic thing, and he's got a completely different business than we do, of course, but how he kind of navigated through this pandemic and how he is navigating now and continuing to go through it. I talked with him a little bit this week, and it was really interesting, the stuff that you were talking about going through it. So I'm glad that you're here with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really an opportunity to speak to good friends and talk about the pandemic and how it's affected our respective businesses. In a lot
Exactly.
of ways we're different. In a lot of ways we're very similar.
Right. So how many years have you been in business, Jim?
So I've been practicing law for 28 years.
Wow, awesome.
Um,
And you do it with your wife?
Sure, I've got several lawyers who work with me. Megan does a divorce practice, and we have Christy who works with us as well, who does a divorce practice, a very robust divorce practice. We do criminal law, and then I handle, primarily, my job is to handle major criminal, major medical malpractice, personal injury, typically the wrongful death cases. And we take cases all the way from the Quad Cities to downtown Chicago. I've got several cases pending now in downtown Chicago, Rockford, throughout northern Illinois.
And they just get your name off the web? I mean, or that's how, or?
Well, I found just as you have, Bud, that if you do a really good job, you work really hard for your clients, they come back to you and they bring friends and family back as well.
And recommend word of mouth network.
Absolutely, word of mouth is key, and in order to maintain word of mouth, of course, you have to work really hard. But the practice of law has dramatically changed over the course of the past year with COVID, and how we do things now. Quite frankly, in some ways, I think it's improved.
How
so?
So let's talk about that. So before COVID, for 27 years of my 28 years of practice, when I would appear in court, of course, I would have to appear personally in court. When I would take a deposition, I would have to appear personally. And so that meant traveling every week, every day. It got to a point where I was averaging two times a week in downtown Chicago, several times a year traveling to California, Arizona, Florida, New York, places all over the country. And after COVID struck, we began doing things remotely. So we use Zoom for virtually everything. And it allows us to conduct depositions remotely. So instead of traveling to California to conduct the deposition remotely, we can conduct the deposition, to conduct it in person, we can conduct it remotely from my office. And so it's dramatically reduced the expenses to the client by allowing us, we conduct it safely and less expensively.
So is there certain rules that they have to, like, on the other end, like somebody have to be with them to, official, how to make it like,
Sure,
like
no.
somebody could say, oh, that's fake. How do you know that's real? Or,
No, the Supreme Court of the state modified a lot of the rules in order to accommodate this approach to the practice of law. So now we have a court reporter, and the court reporter is in the safety of his or her office. The court reporter administers the oath through the computer screen. The witness is seated in a home or at a witness center or somewhere else, takes the oath, and the attorney is typically in another office, I'm in another office, and we're all present by Zoom, and we conduct the deposition that way.
And that's like when you
Nice.
showed me, when I came to your plaza and talked to you last year, you showed me that room where that, like, the person comes in there, and
Yeah.
that's like the deposition room?
Yeah, so we call it the Electronic Witness Center. The reason we did that was because I was aware that there might be people in this world like Jay Pauley who might be confused by a computer. So
I haven't seen him in a while, and we're good friends, and so I'm going to let that go.
okay, fair enough. No, in all seriousness, there are a lot of people who don't have internet access or aren't comfortable for
Sure.
one reason or another in appearing in court or appearing for a deposition on their own smartphone. A lot of people in the area who are adept at the use of computers, but they have really poor internet connections because they live out in the country.
Sure.
So they come to our witness center, they sit in front of this terminal, and then we run the entire thing for them. They don't have to do a thing. They just sit down in a chair and they're zoomed into the courtroom, or they're
Nice.
zoomed into the deposition room, and they just sit there, testify, and then they leave when they're done. It's really easy.
Awesome.
And
That's
it's safe.
really, so that's why that we need to invest in Tesla. Elon Musk is putting all those satellites up there so we all get internet better.
Well, that's
would
one, the
be-
Starlink satellites certainly
Yeah.
would be
They would
a
be.
decent investment, or you invest in witness centers like mine, and
Mm-hmm.
it really is.
Did you have to upgrade all your, like the internet stuff?
Yeah, no, we did do that. We boosted internet speed, and we also created some redundancies that we didn't have before COVID. So we have multiple different ports of internet access, multiple different modems, so that if one goes down, we have another one, and then we have another one. Because the last thing in the world you want is to be in the middle of a court proceeding and then have a witness
Bye.
kicked out because of an internet connection.
Sure.
One of the other things that was quite a hot topic in the law early on, and quite frankly still is to some extent, is an argument between lawyers over what's better. Having a witness on Zoom, on a computer screen, without a mask covering his or her face, because of course it's extremely important to be able to see the witness and evaluate their credibility. And it's my view that seeing their entire face, seeing their mannerisms, the way in which they speak, the inflections, the whether it's a smile or a frown, that can be really important to the evaluation of credibility. And when the witness is present on a computer screen, it's not as perfect as it used to be before COVID, but we can see their entire face. You can hear their tone, you can hear their words, and you can see their entire face.
Sure.
If the witness is in the courtroom, their face is completely covered by a mask. You can see their eyes, and that's it.
Right.
So I think it's easier to evaluate the credibility of a witness by having them on a computer screen.
This is it's so interesting. This is a thing that's been on the minds of and bothering different people. Heather, my girlfriend, who's a teacher, same thing. Am I really communicating with them? Am I really understanding? Am I getting the vibe of all the students in my room and whatnot? Everyone is dealing with this in a different way. That's a manifestation that never
You bet
would
it
have
is.
occurred to me.
You bet it is. And Jay, you know what we did early on? We actually tried this. We put our masks on, and then we tried different facial expressions and figured out you can't tell
No, you
if someone's smiling or frowning or emotionless. You can't tell that when they're covered by a mask. So even though it's not as great as it used to be, it's a ton safer, and quite frankly, it's far more effective in the evaluation of credibility. But don't misunderstand me. There are people in my profession who don't agree with me. They're the ones that we happen to call dead wrong. But they
Good
they-
category. Big
yeah,
category,
they-
unfortunately.
in all seriousness, the legal profession, your profession, it's a reflection of society. And we see this in society, don't we? We see the people who believe that wearing a mask is part of our civic responsibility, and other people who believe that it's an act of cowardice. I've never for the life of me understood how someone could view conducting themselves in a manner that's intended to save someone else's life as an act of cowardice. I actually view that as an act of bravery. The people who are the anti-maskers, they're if we think about it, and I think history will show, they're the cowards. But what we've seen in the legal profession is those who don't want to give up the travel, those who don't want to give up traveling to California for a deposition or traveling to the courtroom.
Oh, of course not.
Not because going in person into a small congregate setting where there's poor ventilation is safer. We all know that's not safer. We all know that it causes greater risk to people. But it's money.
Sure.
Because if you don't travel and you bill by the hour, by the way, I'm billing for this, right? I mean,
Yeah, we'll talk.
if you don't,
We didn't discuss that before. Oh.
no.
Well,
We didn't.
well, that's all the time we have for Sip and Trip. No.
Yeah, no.
Cut.
If you don't travel, then you're not making as much money.
Sure.
So there are those who quite frankly would rather hold on to their pre-COVID revenues to the risk of others than perhaps come up with better ways, safer ways that also preserve the revenues.
Right.
And you can do that if you practice law scrupulously. You can do that if you're civically responsible. And I think eventually most of the people in my profession will come around to that. But to this day, we have judges who don't want us in their courtrooms. They want all courts conducted remotely because it's safer and because it's better. And we have other judges who say, no, you have to come into the courtroom, and they order people to remove their masks.
Right. You told me that when we were, and I know you discussed that with Bud too, but you told me that when you and I ran into each other down at
Sure.
your place.
We're both wearing masks.
Both wearing masks.
Well, we
and
still
about
do.
this far away. And it was maybe 2 or 3 days later, I happened to be in Clinton and ran into, in a socially distant way, or met a lawyer whose name escapes me right now, who was saying the exact same thing. And I asked him if he knew you, and he said yes, and I still don't remember his name, so I'll have to figure it out later. But he said the exact same thing, about the exact same judge, by the way. that you mentioned to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, there are some very responsible judges, and I think that overall many of our courts have conducted themselves extraordinarily well and adapted just amazingly to this pandemic and allowed the court operations to continue, to our justice system to continue to function well and yet safely. But as it is with everything, there are different views on COVID, and those different views can create some unfortunate disagreements.
Right, and we adapted. I mean, we completely, figured, all right, how are we going to do this and be safe? And we've adapted, and we chose to just move on with all the time and effort. Plus, like I said before, we can't find help. We don't have the help to run the retail. We just don't have the help. We can't find the help to do the maintenance. It's just Jay and Quinn right now doing it because we can't find anybody that wants to work.
Because they're afraid, you think?
I don't know, Jim. I don't know. I've asked around. I've tried. We ended up hiring 7 kids from Newman, but of course the kids are in school.
Sure.
So we don't have them till the end of May. And so, I've talked to a lot of people, and I don't know if I said that to you the other day about, about a project that I was interested in years, but we got to wait till we get the help, and stuff, because we have to do all the initial maintenance on all these things early, get that done first. But the kids are just, and they worked at spring break. 3 of them.
They were
did.
awesome.
3 of them did, and 1 was a girl. And she, according to Jay and Quinn, outperformed the men.
Of course she did.
I'm not kidding.
But,
Well, maybe not outperformed, but she just had, sometimes you could tell somebody has the instinct for what they're watching you.
Sure.
They're not even maybe asking too many questions, but it's always good when they do, and they all 3 did. But she kind of watches. Then I would see her do the same thing later. Just little detail things. And it was like, this is
But do you ever wonder about that? Like the people who their first job is a job that they obtained during the pandemic. We've worked for so many years
right.
pre-COVID, and we work so differently pre-COVID. You wonder about how it's going to shape those who are working for the first time in a pandemic and with all the restrictions and protocols we have now.
Out of these out of the 7 kids, 6, this is their first job.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you know what? I hired a Newman kid to work for me as an associate attorney. He wouldn't like me calling him a Newman kid. He's in his mid-20s. But Nick Rude,
Sure, I know.
graduated from Newman, and right when he was finishing up law school, COVID struck. He got sworn in remotely through a computer screen.
Wow.
And he's been practicing his first year of law. He's just completed his first year of law practice through a computer screen.
Well, that's
Wow.
awesome. And when you were talking about, the mask and doing the Zoom where you can see people, I've always said that, when I've ever talked to somebody on the phone and they said, well, we can talk, and, I go, no, I want to come and talk with you, like if they've had a problem with something that we did, or if I needed to tell them about something that we should do. I always said you can read somebody a lot better when you're there, and if you can, be there instead of over the phone and just hear.
Yeah, it's best to be face to face and the whole face, whenever possible.
Right.
You know what we haven't figured out in my profession yet? We're working on it, but we haven't figured it out. Because we can do depositions. We can conduct them remotely, and quite frankly, I conducted a deposition today, and I feel it was more efficient and I was more effective remotely than in person, because you have everything on the computer. But what we haven't figured out, jury trials. So if you guys have any suggestions, please feel free to share.
Okay,
Because you think about it,
we'll think about that.
We have to make sure, we have a responsibility to ensure that the jury is comprised of people who represent the community in which the jury serves. So that doesn't just involve those who are fortunate enough to get the vaccine right away. That involves everyone. It involves an appropriate cross-section of the community. And how do we do that and conduct the jury trial safely? Because we're in an indoor congregate setting. Of course, the jury's going to have to retire from the courtroom at times. Pre-COVID, we would have them all go into a small room, a small unventilated room.
Right.
Where they would all 12, or if they're alternates, 13, 14 individuals all sit together.
All sitting
close
around
quarters.
a table about this size, probably.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. So how are we going to do that now?
Do you
It's a really.
Do you think that a lot of stuff has been like postponed, like we're going to wait? Some of the trials and stuff?
Absolutely, and that's going to be a huge problem.
Be a backlog then.
We have an enormous backlog. The Supreme Court, as it should have, they acted promptly and properly. The Supreme Court told something called the 120-day rule, the speedy trial rule, which provides that individuals who are facing criminal charges have to be tried within 120 days if they are in custody. The Supreme Court said we can't try our cases now because we can't try them safely. So we're going to toll the 120-day rule, which made perfect sense.
Sure.
But the result of that is you have a ton of people who are accused, who are presumed innocent, who are sitting in jail awaiting trial. And more people go in and go sit in jail and await trial. And there's an enormous backlog. And they're as they should be, they're going to be the first cases we try if ever we get out of this mess. And when we go back to trying jury trials, they'll be the first cases tried. But that puts a lawsuit behind the criminal trial. That puts a bunch of other cases behind the criminal trial.
Sure.
So we will have a backlog of years and years and of thousands of cases in this state as a consequence of the last year.
Wow. People don't realize all the stuff that, especially, like thinking, I guess Lisa and I, and I think Jay and everybody else, we're lucky. We're lucky we're doing what we do because we're pretty much outside most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is a big benefit for us. We're still masked though. When we're downtown, I was downtown at 6:30 this morning, there's nobody around me. I still had my mask on because there's always times somebody walks up on you.
Yeah, that happens a lot when we're out and about. It doesn't matter where it is. That happens a lot. How come you're wearing a mask? Because people like you walk right up to me about
Yeah.
3 feet away and
Sure.
ask me why I'm wearing a mask. That'd be one reason.
We just,
and
you know-
that's exactly what I say too. This probably doesn't surprise you.
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
And we get our second shot Monday. Lisa and I do, and then Jay and Quinn are on deck the next day.
Tuesday.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So
I've
we're-
been vaccinated, so I'm 3 days shy of being fully vaccinated. I've got to wait for the 14 days after the second dose, and then
Right.
I'll be there.
How much pushback did you? Well, first of all, let me ask you this: how, when you established this model that you have now, with the witness center, just everything that you're doing at your office to be as safe as possible for everyone involved. But although you're your own entity, you're dealing with all sorts of other entities. So how much pushback did you get? I know you touched on this before, but how much pushback did you get from others in your profession, or part of the, and were you like leading it, or did someone, you know what I'm saying?
I think
This
it's-
is,
I think it's
when
really
we
important.
decide and it's it. You have greenhouse number 4, you have 3, you guys got, we decide it and then it's done. There would be more hurdles for you to have jumped over.
Oh, a ton. But I think to have a successful law practice, it's particularly vital to, when the opportunity presents itself, to lead rather than to follow.
Exactly.
So we did our very best to lead. We were the first and only firm in the area to open an electronic witness center. We did it right away.
Mm-hmm.
We were already fully electronic prior to the pandemic, so the transition in terms of electronic documents being paperless, that was a pretty easy transition for our staff.
You had some of the infrastructure already in place just because of the way you had conducted
Absolutely.
business.
Our clients have been wonderful. Our clients have been absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, there was, among our clients, frankly, among all of us, every one of us, we were all, in uncharted territory.
Sure.
And so there was concern about, well, how's this going to work now? But we figured it out. We figured out how to move our cases, how to keep cases going and keep the wheels of justice spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And our clients, I think, have been very appreciative of our approach to it. That we've allowed, we've been able to move our cases. We've been able to have documents signed electronically. We've been able to, quite frankly, make it easier for our clients. I think clients have figured out too, Jay, if you think about it, before COVID, if there was a case that was set on the 9 o'clock court call, you'd have to have someone, they would have to take off work for a full day.
Right.
And they would arrive for 9 o'clock court, and they would sit there maybe until 11 or 11:30 when the case might finally be called.
Sure.
Now, they can Zoom in, they can have their court appearance conducted, and they can go about their day. So it's actually a tremendous amount of cost savings for the client. Also, their bills are lower. They're not paying the lawyers who work for me to travel all over the state to handle their cases.
Right.
So previously, they might pay for 2 hours of attorney time. Now they're paying for 10 minutes of attorney time.
So,
It worked out really well for our clients, and they've been appreciative, and we've been appreciative of our clients.
so do you think you'll just kind of keep doing it this way?
Well, yeah.
If they I suppose if they let you, but your hands may be tied in certain circumstances where they say, we're not going to allow this, or you said that they, like that 120-day thing they let slide, they bring that stuff back, how's it? I guess what I'm just trying to say is, are you going to move forward with what you're doing right now and just keep doing that, or?
I think it depends on that question has a lot of parts to it. It absolutely, when it comes to depositions, we are going to strongly advocate for conducting depositions remotely, because it just makes so much sense. It's so much less expensive for the clients,
All the reasons you've already illustrated. Yeah.
and it's so much safer.
Yeah, but I want to go to California.
Yeah, well, you can go to California, but where I think it becomes hard, Bud, is as I was saying, jury trials. I don't know, conducting them remotely. And by the way, Lake County actually conducted the very first remote electronic jury trial in the state. But think about how does that work? Because you got to make sure the jurors aren't communicating with one another, that they're not having any outside influence. Excuse me. And so how do we go about that?
Yeah, there's
So
probably certain
I
places.
think there are certain things that we as a profession are going to have to start doing in person once we get to a point where it can be done safely. I wish our profession had devoted more time to coming up with creative ways, safer ways of conducting jury trials sooner than this. I think everyone's kind of been kicking the can down the road, hoping that the road is smoother and without as many potholes as we get farther down it. I don't think that's the best approach.
Some of the people probably hate it because you moved their cheese. You know, it's different. They don't want to
Right,
change.
exactly.
This is the way. And we see that a little bit in our IGC group. They're not thinking on how they can conduct business if you can't be open to let people in. That's the only way they know how to conduct business.
Oh, the law has always been slow to move. I mean, the justice system has been very slow to adapt. I will say that our Illinois Supreme Court has worked very hard to fashion administrative orders that do allow us to use remote electronic means in order to have our cases conducted that way. And it has allowed us to do a lot of the things that we're doing. But I hope we take the next step, the next logical step, and that is start planning for remote electronic jury trials. And I could see having a remote electronic jury center somewhere. You know, you take I was thinking, for example, and I'm just using this as an example, the old Kmart building. Make that a jury center where you have prospective jurors show up and they sit in front of terminals. That way you can have security ensuring that they're not being tampered with, that they're not communicating with one another. They sit in front of terminals, but it's safe. They're not all in the same small room packed together.
Yeah, everybody could have their own little room or whatever.
Yep. And it's not perfect. No one really likes that idea, but it's a lot better than dying of COVID.
Yeah, you shouldn't be laughing. There's nothing funny about it, but you have no choice but to laugh some days.
Well, think about that. So if you're on a jury, what are you supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be paying attention
Right.
to the testimony. You're supposed to be paying attention to the evidence. You're supposed to have an undivided focus on what's occurring in the courtroom. But if you're sitting next to some guy who's coughing, are you going to be paying attention to the witness? Are you going to be holding your breath and thinking about how quickly can I get
I'll
the
get
hell
the
out
hell
of
out of here. Yeah.
here?
You know, when you say that, last March, it was every 3 years I have to renew my license to spray, like when I come and spray
sure.
like weeds and stuff
Sure.
or anything in that. And I went in, signed up, and I go to DeKalb. It's right by Northern Illinois University, one of their campus areas, and I signed up and I went and I got in there, and we started taking the test, and I heard the one guy get up and saying that, he goes, man, I heard him tell the lady, I felt sick, like I've had the flu, and I got a headache and this and that, and I was just, it was so new. It was real early March, so I'm thinking like, all right, does this guy got that virus? They saying it's probably going to go around, and then after, fast forward 2 weeks to when we shut down, I'm like, oh shit, I bet you that guy freaking, and Jim, we're in an old-fashioned classroom.
Sure, and
it takes me 3 hours to take this
No
test.
kidding.
And I'm
they're
like,
just-
shit.
If you got OCD issues like I do, you're just you're just panic stricken. All right, what's your funniest, Jay? What is your funniest COVID story of the thing you did that, with the benefit of reflection, you look back on and feel a little embarrassed about? Do you have any of those?
The thing that I did that I'm a little bit embarrassed about.
Yes. What was your most extreme reaction to COVID that, with the benefit of reflection, you think, I didn't really need to do that?
Well, I wrote about this, and it's kind of funny-ish now, but it wasn't funny at the time, where this was to the point where everyone was wearing, well, masks were now being recommended, as opposed to that early time when they were saying, no,
Sure.
you don't need a mask, and it turned out that was,
Right.
we don't want to run out of masks, because we weren't great yet. But anyway, I was in a store, because you get to the point where you got to go to the store. And I'm not a germaphobe or OCD kind of, you know what I mean? I'm just not.
you're not me.
No, Jim, I'm
Got
not
it.
you. That's why we get along. But
Brett's the chairman,
I
just
had
like
what was close to an anxiety attack.
Oh, sure.
In that store.
Sure.
I was just looking at the person would come around the corner and, and there's somebody that's, picking up every single air freshener. And it's just like, pick an air freshener and get the hell out of here. Who touched this? Who touched that? There was that one time. There's been other times, now it's more, it became in time more like, oh, for Christ's sake, are you kidding me? You're not wearing a mask?
Sure.
And then you just, like Bud and I have talked about, I know what I'm getting, and I go in and I get it, and I'm out. I even time it sometimes.
Oh, but when this started back in March, my most embarrassing story, I apparently decided in my mind that there's going to be a milk shortage and a corn shortage. Now, I have no explanation for this. I have none.
this ought to be interesting.
No, but I ended up,
So he bought a new Frigidaire.
no, it's
Got a cow?
No, it's more embarrassing than that. No, I bought cases and cases of Carnation condensed milk that are still in my house. Just, in case, if there's no milk, my kids like to drink milk.
Kids
so
like milk.
Yeah.
Gotta have
Yep.
milk.
And then somewhere in the process, maybe I just hit the buy button too many times, but I bought several cases of canned corn. So for the next
So you have the
pandemic,
beginnings of a bunker.
I do, provided that the people in the bunker like to drink condensed milk and canned corn.
And canned corn.
Yep.
I suppose if you're hungry, you'll eat anything. But
That's my embarrassing COVID story. I don't know.
maybe we need, I know what we need to do. We need to get Jim a recipe book on creamed corn
There we go.
recipes.
You know what? You probably could combine those two.
Well, it is. You use, the milk.
I have no
and
explanation
the
for this.
corn.
Yeah, and stay close to the commode.
I still have yeah, true. I still have way too many damn cans of corn and condensed milk in my house. But next pandemic, I'll be ready.
Well, Lisa
There you
and
go.
I, it's kind of funny you say that because one of the jokes that Lisa and I say, and it depends on what she tells me to go to the store to get. Like she'll go, we're low on toilet paper, you need to go to the store. So that means I go downstairs to where I have the wall of toilet paper and I grab a thing and I come upstairs and I go, I went to the store for you. And I go, while I was there, I got some paper towels and some more coffee. So,
Perfect.
it's funny that what you try to, and I've always been one to like the stockpile stuff. I don't know why, I've always have.
Sure.
One of the things that I can say that I've enjoyed because of this pandemic that I've gotten back into, and it's because I've always said that give me $1 million or give me time. I'll take this any day. I'm dead serious. The time that we've been able to gain from this pandemic, I try to always look at the good side of stuff. And the good side of this is that Lisa and I, right before this, right, Lisa? You're over there pretty quiet. You can chime
I'm
in
clicking.
anytime. Right before this,
Switching.
we had a consultant come in to try to figure out how we can get off the treadmill of 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day for 10 years. I mean, we would go on vacation, Jim, for a month, and it would take the first 2 weeks. I can distinctly remember the one vacation we stayed, we got a cabin, and we both said that if 2 more days, we'll give it 2 more days. If we can't compress and be able to move on, then we're just going to go back home. But fortunately, we ended up at Yellowstone, and
Wow, that's nice.
It did do the thing in that. But one of the things that this has done for me is time in the yard, like I said, that we've been doing. But the other thing is puzzles.
Puzzles?
Puzzles.
Sure.
I've always, when I was a kid and my cousin used to come over and babysit us, we always had a puzzle on the table, and we'd eat dinner and then we'd take the tablecloth off and we'd work on the puzzle. And I thoroughly enjoy jigsaw puzzles. And so I've probably done in the last year, I've probably done, and more people probably done way more than me, but I've probably done a dozen puzzles.
Wow.
And I enjoy doing them. I really do. And I trade them with different people and stuff like that. But
So I've been listening to you very carefully because I think that you're onto something with, understanding the importance of time, vacation. I have to tell you that I'm embarrassed to admit this, but since the pandemic began, since March of 2020, mid-March, there's only been 2 days that I've worked less than 10 hours. And it was Thanksgiving and Christmas. Every single day, other than those 2 days, I've worked a lot.
it just wore it.
And that's, I think that's been necessary in order to navigate through this new way of practicing law. And quite frankly, the volume of cases that we're working on and the importance of those cases. But I'm hoping we get to a point, and I think we're now on the verge of it, where we're falling into a new, safer and better rhythm. And I'm hoping we get to that point where, I can do puzzles. I can spend more time doing.
I've always stressed the importance, even when I worked in the factory. One of the examples years ago when you first started working in the factory, if you had 3 weeks vacation, you could work they'd give you the 3 weeks pay, and you want to work, sure, we'll give you your pay. Well, it got to the point where they said, you got at least, if you got 3 weeks vacation, the only way you're going to get your vacation pay is if you take a full week off. We want you to be off. And
Sure.
and it does. It energizes me. It does. It just, and it also motivates me. It always has motivated me to go through all this stuff, 90-degree days, doing all the work and stuff like that. And at the end of the tunnel, I see this, we're going to be going on vacation, going to the national parks and doing this stuff like that. It's always motivated me. But yeah, the time, I guess, I don't know, Lisa, would you say, it's been a lot of different type of work getting into this different mode of running Distinctive Gardens, but
It's a brand new business.
yeah, but in the
Really?
long run,
You think of it as a brand new business?
it is. Well, that's
Year
what
two?
we tell
Yeah.
everybody. This is our second year. It's not our 22nd. It's our second year.
Right.
Because this is a brand new way we're doing business.
Yeah.
But I think eventually down the road, her and I have been talking today. We'll just see what happens. And maybe it has to morph this direction or morph this direction. But her and I both are in agreement that we're not going to turn back. We're moving
I think the way you've
forward.
been doing it is just so responsible, and it's just kind of a model, I think, for other businesses like yours to look at and model themselves after.
Well, isn't that how the two of you first started talking
is.
to one another?
It is.
It was thanks
Kindred
to a
spirits.
sipping trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Is Dr. Coon's one, I think.
Yeah. And there are other business owners, I think, in the area who've been extraordinarily responsible in the way they've conducted themselves. I think of Matt Prescott, who owns Candlelight. He's been watching the numbers. He's posted. He didn't feel safe, even though the governor's order allows him to be open. He determines it's not safe for his staff, and he closes and he buys the fleet of cars and delivers the Candlelight. And I think business owners like that are going to be seen in the long run as being heroes of the community. Business owners like you, heroes of the community who found a way
Kelly.
to do it effectively and to do it safely.
Nancy, or I think it's Nancy Kelly, isn't it, that owns Kelly?
Yep.
Yeah.
They've been great. Kelly's have been great, haven't they? They have that little area that you pull in. And I don't know about you, but I also feel, as one of those business owners who has taken COVID seriously, and taken the responsibility to my fellow man and woman seriously, I really look favorably on those other businesses who've done the same thing. And it's been my determination, at least for my own personal life, that those are the businesses I plan to support. And hopefully one day, soon from now, COVID will be over. But I'm still going to be a loyal customer of Distinctive Gardens and of the Candlelight Restaurant and of Kelly's and those places that have conducted themselves responsibly. And I promise you, I'm going to drive by those places that opened in defiance of the governor's order. Because I've got a little girl and little boy at home that I love dearly. And there's a tremendous responsibility on your part and on mine to keep them safe. And those that say that they're acting in the name of freedom or bravery by spreading this virus so that it risks my children know nothing of bravery or freedom.
You know, the unfortunate thing, and everything that you say is absolutely 100% true. I agree with every single word you say. I guarantee we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
How unfortunate it is that our country dealt with this in a way that forced businesses to choose to either defy or comply or close.
Sure.
There are so many different, we've talked a lot about models. There are so many different models, country-wise, that said, everybody stay home, here's your UBI, we'll get back to this when it's safe.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't perfect, but we were to varying degrees thrust into a survival of the fittest, dog eat dog situation that I think is on the one hand, it's opened our eyes to different
Yep.
entities around us and different, people that we know or thought we knew. But on the other hand, it was an unfair and uncaring way, ultimately, to deal with the pandemic as a country, when so many other countries did it better.
I completely agree with you. And I understand why there was a division in March of 2020. These really were uncharted territories at that time. We didn't know fully what we were dealing with, and different people had different understandings of COVID and how it worked. And I understand the differences then, but we've been living with this now for 13 months.
Right.
We should be past that. Why, to this day, there are those who, instead of listening to someone who's been a leader in our community, and we're talking about others, Dr. Coons has been a true leader in the community, but why would I listen to Dr. Coons when I can listen to some guy on Facebook who thinks he read something somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
It defies my comprehension.
They were just talking about that on NPR yesterday about how did they put it? It was really well put, because it was like planting a seed. Like, somebody says this and like, all right, we're going to see if this thing grows, and all it takes is a couple people to fertilize that thing, and the freaking thing grows into a redwood.
You bet it does. But boy, it sure does seem to me that on an issue of science, we should listen to scientists. On an issue of medicine, we should probably listen to doctors. And I know that's who I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Dr. Osterholm.
Osterholm, yep. And
Absolutely.
Lisa and I listen to him every week. It might not be pretty what he's saying, but he's not going to give you a line of crap. I mean, this is what his forte is. I mean, this is what he's done his whole life.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of listen to what he has to say and try to do our best and be understanding and be kind. Like he always says, be kind, be kind.
Yeah, he's got a real, even when he's giving you news that's not great or info you don't want, which I appreciate as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I was parented. That's
You
the way
bet.
I parent. That's the way I deal with everything.
You bet.
You might not like what I'm telling you, but you need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But he always gives it that extra,
And that we're going to
the
get
humanity,
out of
the humanity level of it that stops it from being clinical and
Sure.
I don't want to know and la 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 la, because it's not what I want to hear.
Right. I agree.
this. Sure, there's stuff he said, I'm like, everybody's tired.
Right.
Everybody's tired.
Oh, we're all tired of this. We hate it.
Yep.
I absolutely hate it. But, we don't get through it by denying it.
Right. Well, yeah, it doesn't go away like, I don't see. We're not Schultz. I see nothing, I hear
Exactly.
nothing, I do nothing.
Right.
Well, the new variant that is running through our area, the B117 variant, is
Yeah, I know, that's what Eric said. Dr.
certainly
Coons.
concerning. But,
Younger kids. Now, one of the kids from Newman, one of the younger kids from Newman, and that's the thing that I like about these kids. And it kind of goes back to when Quinn, my son, had all his, I went to his football practices, and I'm going like, strong, big, strong. I go, you boys want to work? And those kids, I freaking had so much fun with those kids. I would listen to them. We might be, landscaping your yard and that, and then I hear them talking about stuff they're doing in school, and I'm just like, okay, guys, let me tell you. You might want to think about when you're going to do something like, I was always lecturing. And I had a couple parents come up to me and go, I don't know whatever you said to him, but we really appreciate whatever you said because he wasn't listening to us.
Right.
And I really like, and the same thing with these kids, but one of the kids is he was excited. He goes, I'm getting a Pfizer vaccine. He got vaccinated a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So, he was excited about doing it. And I think if they can get these kids, especially to make the school safer, would make the school safer to all be back in. And I know that the kids like to be in school. It's all part of being together with your buddies and, all the memories. We all sit at our class reunions and share the memories we did in high school,
My kids have been remote learning this entire year.
Really?
And it's hard. It's hard for them.
How old are they?
I see it. So my son is 9 years old, and my daughter's 11, and my daughter's 12. She's about to be 12. My daughter is one of the few kids in her class who's remote learning. My son is the only kid in his class who's remote learning. And it's been a real struggle for them. And it's also a struggle for them to see the photos of friends who are out,
we talked about that the
doing
other day.
things while they're not. And I'm really looking forward to that day when they can all get together safely and attend school safely. And I do hope we make those modifications to our schools that are necessary to make them safer places.
Sure.
The teachers have been phenomenal. Our local teachers have been phenomenal in the way they adapted so immediately.
But I think the kids adapt to good. I mean, my
Sure.
three-year-old grandson, he comes over, he knows he's got to have his mask on, unless like the other day when he came over and he goes, Grandpa, I'm thirsty and I need chocolate, so he wants to eat something, then he takes his mask. But when we're together, he has his mask on and he's fine with it.
Yeah, the kids, quite frankly, I think the kids are listening better than a lot of the adults. Some of the adults that I know could learn a lesson or two from some of the kindergartners I know. They seem to understand. They seem to be socially responsible, and I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. So do you think like doing the stuff that you're doing the way you're doing it, that you've gained more business, or you?
I do.
Okay.
I do. In fact,
well, if
early
it's cheaper,
but as I was saying early on, there was some pushback, frankly, among all of us, and there was some hesitation among all of us about how is this going to look going forward? But I think people have figured out that wait a minute, this saves a ton of money. It allows my case to progress faster and more efficiently. Allows me to avoid going into a courtroom,
Miss work.
And miss work.
Or miss more work.
Sure, absolutely. And so I think people have figured out this is working, and it's working quite well, and the results are as good, if not better. And the route along the way to those results is a ton better, a ton cheaper, and a ton safer. So, we don't get pushback. Like I said, the concern that keeps me up at night as a trial lawyer is how do we get back to trying jury trials? Right. That's the big struggle. But the rest of it, we figured out, and we figured it out well. And some of the law firms are still resistive to it for various reasons. Some of them aren't equipped to convert to electronic legal practice. Sure. And I get that. Some of them are equipped but don't want to be because it costs them in terms of their revenues. But that's not us. We've chosen to be leaders in the community, and we want to stay that way.
They would think of the money more than the client. And I noticed on your it must geez, I can't think. Your website.
Yep.
I guess your motto or whatever you would say that it is, where after reading it, I would say, when reading that, I would say that you're the type of person or law firm that takes it personally. Each client is a personal interest to me. It isn't a dollar figure.
You know, we really do, and
and-
we actually will have moments where we remind ourselves. Each case will remind ourselves of how important this case is to that client. You know, these so many of my clients are in the most challenging moment of their life. They've just lost a loved one, and we never forget that. And in their case, it really is, for one reason or another, it is the most important event in their life at that time, and we treat it that way.
And I think that, you know, years ago, you know, you used to hear things in the business world. You would hear like you can't be friends with the people that are your clients, or you don't get personal with your friends. And I'm thinking that's a line of, I mean, we've gotten so many personal relationships, and I think, you know, built relationships and that from people that we've done stuff for, and they become our friends and stuff. I think it's great. I've always been a people person. When I was in college, I'll never forget, I and another girl were in a running for a scholarship. And I was so mad because the girl wasn't to be in class, and the guy came to interview us. So I was in class, but she wasn't, so she took him around the school. And I'm thinking like, oh, you know, she's
man.
like freaking brown-nosing him and stuff like that. And then, you know, he came in and was interviewing us. And I distinctly remember one of the questions he asked. He goes, what do you like about the horticulture industry the most? And I thought a minute, and I go, the people.
Sure.
You know, the people. It's the people, the interacting with the people and stuff like that. Well, guess who won the scholarship?
Nice.
Because he said in the next breath, he goes, I feel exactly the same way. So I thought like, oh man, I just scored.
Now, Bud, you worked at Lundstrom's
Yep.
for us at one
When
point.
did your brother Don? When did he work there?
So my brother Don worked at Lundstrom's 84 to 90 or so before he opened Calla's Floral Gallery. He worked for Lundstrom's for several years.
Was Alice there or no? Was
I believe so. Yeah.
Mrs. Lundstrom?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think. I started in Lisa's grandma, who lived across the street in that house over there, came over to give my brother the job, and he goes, I don't want it. And I said, I'll take the job. And I was 13 years old. So I started working there in 73, and I worked there through high school, so it would have been through 77, and then why did I quit? Well, I had summer work at National, so I was making more money than I was there, Miss Lund. But I always helped her. I mean, I would always go back and help her and do things and stuff like that. And then when I graduated from college, which would have been 80, I had to work in the horticulture field, and you know, I could have went back. To Mrs. Lundstrom would have took me in a heart. She wanted me to buy the place. You know, her and I always was in contact with her. Best boss, and I can distinctly remember looking Lawrence Swartley in the face and say, the best boss I ever worked for is Alice Lundstrom. You know, and I remember him going, gee, thanks. I go, I'm just being honest with you. She was the best person she really took me under her wing and showed me stuff, the business end of it and stuff. I had the natural talent like your brother does, you know, to
he's
create with flowers and
yeah.
stuff like that. Ann Lundstrom, Mrs. Lundstrom's daughter, said, you know, I remember her talking to when she came to our shop one time. She goes, you know, Mom tried and tried with me, but I couldn't do it. She goes, you've got the talent. You know, it's there, and once they show you a few things, you know,
Sure.
you can do it. You know, and she goes, I could never do that. I couldn't. And now her brother Rob could do that. You know, and Rob taught me a lot of stuff too in doing the stuff and that. But it was a great place to work. I mean, Mrs. Lundstrom was such a fair person, and through all these little steps in my life of encountering people and doing stuff, and one of the biggest influence businesses wise on me, I don't know if I ever have told you, I think Lisa knows on how to treat people and run a business, was Kenny McCaslin.
Oh,
And I remember
That doesn't surprise me.
we were working near, I don't know if you were working there, but we were working like 2 houses from where Kenny was well, I think it was Quinn and I were working there. And we got done, he left, and I saw Kenny sitting in the garage, so I went in and he got a chair and we sat down and we talked. And, you know, I thanked him because I worked at his brand new house that he just built out in Hickory Hills. A kid just out of college, never landscaped a single house in his life. And Kenny goes, well, you can land. I did a drawing, and he goes, well, let's do this. And I worked there after work every night. I had dinner with his family, you know, I mean, I really got to know all of them, Pat and Kenny, you know, all the kids, Tim, and that, and got to know them, but he took trust in me. But I listened, you know, I told him, I go, you know, you might, all that stuff you were talking about when we were together, you know, and that, I did listen to what you had to say, believe me. And he was very thankful for me coming to telling him that, because, but he was a big influence on me, on how to run a business and that, because I know shit about, you know, thank God I have this one over here. Hi.
Yeah.
Thank
Been
God
getting
I
some
have
nice
her.
comments and thoughts.
Okay, well, just what, maybe we'll let you say.
Whenever.
Oh yeah, well now probably be a good time. Now be good.
All right.
Okay, I'm done.
You guys have been a little busy.
Well, we all been interacting.
sure.
Oh yeah. So we might back up a little bit for different things that you were.
So is
touching
your
on
brother,
earlier.
what's he doing?
He sells real estate, and he rescues dogs.
Okay, so he doesn't do any
In
flower.
Arizona.
He probably is creative in his at his house.
He's in Phoenix, Arizona. He'll always be creative.
All right, guys. Jana was asking, can you ask potential jurors if they've been vaccinated during, and she spelled something VOIR.
Yeah, so the question, as I understand it, is can you ask a prospective juror if they've been vaccinated? The short answer, in my opinion, is yes, but it's not without some debate. There are those who might argue that violates privacy or HIPAA, but it's my opinion, and there is law to support this, that on a matter of risk to others, the answer to that question is particularly important in the evaluation of whether someone can sit on a jury. So I think it's absolutely an appropriate question.
I think
it's an appropriate question for an employer to ask of an employee, and I think it's an
I'm
appropriate.
asking it all the time now. Like if I come
Yeah.
over and visit with people for landscape, and I go, we got our first shot, you know, and the other people, oh yeah, we've had ours for, you know, or I ask them, hey, have you got a shot yet? And oh yeah. You know,
Yeah, you try to bring it up in a conversational way, but what you really want to know is, hey.
Well, you know, Dr. Coons would be far more qualified than I to speak to this, but what we're understanding from the emerging medical literature is that those who have been fully vaccinated are far less likely to spread or transmit the virus. That they're simply not shedding virus, and they're not transmitting the virus. And if the medical community confirms that, and perhaps Dr. Coons, when he's next on, can confirm that or speak to that issue, then the answer to that question becomes particularly vital. Because if we have an individual who's sitting on a jury who might be transmitting the virus to others, we can't have that.
Right.
So I think it's absolutely appropriate to ask
well,
that.
that'll be my way out if I ever get called for jury trial.
See,
I ain't
now-
never had a shot in my life.
Absolutely.
Don't believe in it.
You know what?
Gone.
They'll be.
But the truth of the matter
He's
is,
joking, but
yeah, I know you're joking, but the truth of the matter is, I'm sure that will occur.
yeah.
Oh, I bet you're
Sure
right.
it will.
So what else, sweetie?
Well, when you guys were talking about keeping children at school safe, that whole line of conversation, Vicki Horton was saying, I agree with what you said, Jim. Very important to keep the children and others safe throughout this whole thing. Bernadine Hitlet, Bud is so right. Time is what
Wow.
life is about. Money is needed, but so is the ability to enjoy life. So we're taking a tour through your conversation.
Okay, that's fine.
Cool.
And then Christine Tischler said, very nice commentary on supporting businesses that take this virus seriously. I feel the same and will be a supporter of the businesses that take care of the community. All right, Christine, right on.
Right on.
And then here's one. Mary Hurley Schmitz, 6 weeks Our entire staff will be vaccinated. We are very proud of this.
Nice.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, that's the way
Nice,
we
those
feel.
are nice people.
That's the way we feel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yep.
Well, we
it's gonna
can't
be
wait. I mean, and it isn't that we're, you know, they're still sane, and we're still moving forward through the same protocol. Even though we're vaccinated, we're going to wear a mask. We're going to do this stuff. But what it happened, like today, my glasses were falling off because of my mask, and I'm thinking like, you know, once we're all vaccinated and past the 2 weeks, I can at least walk in the greenhouse and tell Jody what to do and then walk out and not have to worry. I'm not going to stay in there for hours with her, but I won't have to always
Right.
like, I got to put my mask on or
but you
try
know,
to
one,
do
one of the reasons for it, even if we determine that if you're vaccinated, you can no longer transmit the virus, it's still a matter of common courtesy to wear the mask. I think it's more than common courtesy. I think it's necessary for health reasons, public health reasons. But even if we get to a point where we confirm that if you're fully vaccinated, you're not able to transmit the virus, and we're not at that point. If we get to that point, how do I know that you've been fully vaccinated?
Well, that's a big thing on NPR, Jim. How
Yeah.
they're thinking like on the airlines, on like the guys in the army. You know, the people that are in the military service. There's certain percent that don't want to take.
40% of U.S. Marines have not been vaccinated, have
Right.
refused the vaccine. And I suspect that probably has its origin in the political polarization of this country. It goes way back to March of 2020 and thereafter, and the way in which this virus was treated at that time.
no doubt about it. And those seeds were planted, and if all of the seeds that we plant did that well,
We'd have a lot more time.
we'd have a lot more time.
We wouldn't have to work.
Yep.
Right.
But you know, I don't know. I just know that I can't. The biggest thing for us with the vaccine is at the shop. You know, our bubble. You know, Quinn, Jay, Jody, Larissa, Elisa, and me. You know, our bubble
Sure.
is going to be protected, and we can go about our business easier than the way it's been. Like today, I was frustrated. I'm like, you know, I was just really like this.
I had that day too. Oh, and you know
My
what?
glasses,
Worse,
and they fall on the ground.
you know what made it worse though? Heather made me this. Of course, people make fun of me for it, but I don't care. The little clip-ons that you would put on glasses, but instead of put on the mask, and it just makes it easier. But I forgot these the one day. It was just a few days ago, and just was wearing the regular masks that Bud and Lisa have provided for all of us. And with this, I just go tink, and it falls down, and then I do my
Nice.
thing, blah, blah, blah. And that day I went tink, and that mask went down into the mud. It was like, well, thank goodness I have another whole big packet of masks.
Well, see, you're smarter than I am when it comes to mask wearing. I have not yet figured out how to wear the mask in a manner that doesn't just annoy the heck out of me when it comes to my ears for whatever reason.
Oh, I know. It's
Mine, Jim.
Yeah.
A spot on my ear swells.
Yeah,
if
it
I wear
hurts.
long. And like when Jody left today, I just took it off and I went, thank freaking God. You know,
Yeah.
we needed her there to do stuff, and you know, and like Lisa said, we got to go pick this stuff. But Jody's in the second greenhouse. I go, Jody, isn't there something in the shop you can do? We need to get in there. Okay. So she went in there. So then Lisa and I can go in and do our things and that. And we try to schedule around days like, so Larissa and Jody aren't there the same time.
Sure.
You know, Jody can only work on Fridays, so we try not to have Larissa there so they don't bump into each other and stuff like that. And, you know, you can't really relegate, I don't know if that's even the right word, you can't really tell the people on their personal time what to do and what not to do. We just try to, you know, like, you guys be smart, because if we get sick, you know, it shuts us down. I mean, you know, it shuts our
We had those
business down.
conversations very early on in the pandemic where the entire law firm, or in your case, the entire business, rests upon each individual.
Yeah.
I mean, there has never been, if COVID has taught us anything, it's taught us the importance of civic responsibility and responsibility to one another. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper.
Right.
Never before COVID has that been more resoundingly clear. And so whether it's the managing partner of the law firm or whether it's the file clerk of the law firm, we each have the same responsibility to one another. None of us is more important or less important than the other. And we have to conduct ourselves in a manner that allows us to live safely and allow our fellow human to live safely. It just seems obvious to me. So I actually did put some restrictions on. And look, you know, if you want to go out to the bars in violation of the governor's order, you can do so, but you don't do so without consequence with me. You know, you may have a right to go to a bar, but I have a right to work with who I want to work with.
Yeah, well, Quinn had some time off.
So, but I think I am hopeful. I really am, that with vaccines we're going to get back to some level of normalcy. I'm not sure when that is.
No one seems to be.
I don't think anyone is. Yeah, but when Dr. Coons is on next, I hope you hold him to a specific date.
We'll nail him down. We'll get out a calendar.
Yes.
Or a planner.
When
A
will
planner.
When will
Planner.
absolute normalcy be, Dr. Coons? Give us a specific date.
And I
Right.
want the time.
Yep. Yep.
Just like the vernal equinox happens. This is going to be the COVID equinox.
There we go.
I have no doubt that he wishes he could give us that.
Is there more questions?
Well, they're just resonating with you. Lynn Van Paris, it'll trigger what you were just talking about. How many of you ever even had a sniffle in the last year? My sweet husband and I plan to continue the practice indefinitely. We've never been healthier than we are today. Don Mertes says, absolutely. Sandra Wade said, yes, Lynn, I will continue to mask even after this. It's safe to stop. And then Mary Hurley Schmidt says, I love your mask clip-ons. Great idea.
Yeah, it is. It is
They have a business.
Right.
You don't know these businesses.
trademark those.
I know, right?
You don't know these businesses around here. When I went to look at the landscape, you know, he goes, yeah, I sell motorcycle parts and that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he goes, and he was telling me the volume and the amount. And I'm going like, and I'm looking, it's a Morton building. It's not, you're out in the middle of the freaking country. And I go, you do that out of here? He goes, well, I got another little garage I got stuff in. And he took me inside and showed me the thing, and I'm looking, I'm going like, then he showed me how they weigh stuff and do. You would never know this is over there by Rochelle.
Wow, I didn't know it.
I didn't know either. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, you know. And it's just amazing, I guess. And that's the thing that I like, the people. I miss the interaction. I'm a people person. I miss the interaction. I miss the kids a lot, you know, going to the first grade class, you know. And we were asked by I was begging. I begged Jana, and I begged anybody else with the CEO kids. You know, I would love to talk with the kids. You know, I'd love. Well, we were approached twice this spring, and you know, can we come over and that? And I'm like, you know, I go, I really want you to keep me on your list, but no, we're not allowing anybody in to look and do stuff and things like that. Right now, we're just want to be safe till this thing's past us, but keep me on the list because I want to talk to these kids because
Sure.
the kids are the future. And when you go in to the first graders, Jim, and the teacher's saying like, oh my God, these kids are a handle. You know, I get through to the kids because I got my Green Bay t-shirt or something on underneath, and I got a bag of candy, and the first thing I say is, how many are Bear fans? And 99% of the kids will raise their hands, and there'll be that one kid that says he's a Packer fan, and I go, come on up, and I give him freaking handfuls of candy and stuff. Well, and then there's a half a dozen that say they're Packer fans. But after that, I've got the kids, when I'm in that room, I've got the command. And the kids, when they know I'm coming, they got every single bear.
Any kid who says that he or she is a Packer fan because you bribe him with candy is not a true
It's
Bear
not
fan.
really a true Packer. That's purchase team.
But yeah, but they're not a Bear
allegiance.
fan either. You know, I'm a Bear fan, and you can keep your candy.
But Jim, I tell you
I don't
what,
like the
when
Packer.
I leave that class, before I leave that class, and there's 23 kids in there, and I get them all to say, go Pack, go, I've got 23 new Packer
Well, that's a
fans.
terrible thing.
I think so too. I really. And he
I
claims,
think it's a
and he
good-
claims the
bribing-
kids are the future, and
so-
he's a people person.
so
This is
you're-
all bullshit.
You're bribing kids with candy to say "Go Pack, go." I'm reporting you.
So what?
Boy,
You know,
Finally, someone.
do I need a good
finally
lawyer?
someone else-
yeah, well, it's not going to be me. I'm a Bear fan.
the price is, so, that's it, Jay. If I go to him and I'm a Packer fan, I have a different fee.
That's
but if I go to
absolutely-
him
oh,
and I'm
you
a
bet.
Bear fan,
Right,
I'm not ashamed to admit it.
right. Time to change your allegiance so you can get some candy.
The kids are great. I just love the, you know, growing up and we'd listen to Art Linkletter and he would go, if you've ever watched any of his
Sure.
old stuff, where he would ask kids certain questions and they would come up with those damnedest answers. These kids are funnier than hell because when Lisa and I used to do a skit out at the shop, you know, and after we got done giving them the tour, I told them to pay attention because we're going to go back to the pavilion. We're going to sit down and I'm going to ask you questions, and whoever listened and answers right gets a piece of candy. You know, I'll give you a candy bar.
Sure. You know, I haven't done it since COVID, but I used to always go in the classroom, and the kids would always ask the same questions. Have you ever handled a murder case? And how do you represent someone that you think is guilty? Those would be always the questions.
That's always those are the big ones, the big hits.
Yeah.
And the kids are so in, and I would ask the kids like, what town is the Green Bay Packers from, or you know, or something that's real obvious and stuff. Oh my God, it's Chicago. You know, they would say they have no clue.
Sure.
They have no. Their worry is who they're going to play with and what cartoons,
Yep.
and go home. And I'm thinking like, God, you know,
That'd be sweet to get back to that, wouldn't
yeah,
it?
I can't do that. I'm 60. Would I
would.
look weird doing that? I want to just go play.
Yep.
You know, everybody wants to play. You know.
Sandra Wade said bats. You guys were talking about kids and getting kids engaged. I taught Habitat for Humanity summer gardening classes through SMU. If you want them eating out of your hands, start with teaching them about bats.
Teach them about bats.
They are enraptured.
Well,
about
you know,
bats.
and one of the things talking about bats is Lisa and I sat out here at night when it was warmer earlier, and I noticed the bats. You know, it's starting to get dark, but I can see them.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, I'd see another one, and the other one, they were chasing each other. I'm going like, well, I don't understand. Well, that's, you know, back in the day, you would have to look up, and we just talked about this, encyclopedias are obsolete. You know, I mean, who has an encyclopedia in their house? I mean, there's probably not a whole lot.
You have Google.
That,
Yeah.
So I Googled, why do bats chase each other? And normally, you know, you can go in a cave and there's 5,000 bats together and they're not, you know, chasing each other and stuff like that. Well, it's because the other bat was feeding and this one came into his territory where he's feeding.
Oh,
So he'll chase him off.
sure. Okay.
So that
makes
was
sense.
it. And we've done a lot of stuff with the squirrels. You know, why do the squirrels do this? Why do
Yeah, I've
they do
noticed
that?
when I've been, they're not
They're-
out now, but the squirrels were coming right
And
up.
each
to me.
one is named. We've
Really?
got them all named.
Do they sit on your lap?
No.
You can't touch them at all?
And when I worked at Mrs. Lundstrom's, we called the squirrel Chucky, and I would be in the little greenhouse, and I'd turn around, and he would come in the back door, and he would sit right there at the thing waiting for me to give him some nuts.
Wow.
So it was kind of, it was an interesting. I always like squirrels. There's people that don't like squirrels, but we like squirrels. Are there any gardening questions, Lisa?
Oh, no, we're not thinking about gardening tonight.
Nobody's thinking about gardening.
No, they've
No,
been
don't-
listening
don't
to what
encourage
you
it.
guys have been talking about.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
You know, I slid the comments in when I could, so if anybody's got any particular questions, pop them up and we'll try to get them on the screen. But
So
no,
nobody's talking about
They're
gardening.
listening.
What is wrong with you guys?
you guys been talking about COVID.
Oh, well, COVID gardening.
Oh,
Well, you know, one of the things that I was found.
there's a lot
you
of
know,
people that are resonating with what you're saying, though.
Right.
That's good.
One of the things that, you know, I didn't really realize, but, you know, they have a National Nude Gardening Day. But I can't remember, somebody made a post, and there was several people saying like, oh yeah, there's times during the summer that I go out in the yard and work with no clothes on and stuff. And, you know, a couple of times, some of the comments, the one girl goes, oh yeah, the UPS guy was real surprised when he pulled in the driveway the one time he caught me before I could get into the house, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there is probably a lot of people that garden in the nude. Not me.
I got a tip here. Don Mertes says, ask Jim about all the raccoon babies he's caring for.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When my brother and I were kids, we would actually adopt raccoon babies and had them in our house. It was crazy.
In the house?
Oh yeah.
Your parents let you
Wow.
have them in the house?
Well, yes, but we didn't really give them much choice. That was all my brother.
Oh, it's all Don's idea.
Oh,
That's the way
absolutely.
it always is. So how
Yeah,
far apart?
he was
how-
the bad kid. He was
how-
just the bad kid. I was the good one. He was the bad one.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. So how far an age difference are you guys?
So he's 2 years older than I am.
Wow. So how old are you?
I am 52.
So he's 54.
That's
Okay.
correct.
My brother and I are 15 months apart.
Oh, okay.
So, and my mom dressed us as twins always, and I freaking hated it.
My brother and I would be dressed as twins often.
Oh, God.
Absolutely.
You don't know how much I hated it. And I always tell everybody the line about my brother when I introduce him or whatever like that. I said, my brother's got all the brains in his family because he's an electronic technician, but he can't grow a plant worth of shit.
Yeah, that's funny.
And that's exactly the way it is.
No, I just found a photo of my brother and I sitting on the Easter Bunny's lap, and it was the creepiest Easter Bunny ever. It's a good photo. It's a really creepy Easter Bunny.
Out at the mall?
No. This was, I don't know where this was, but it was the creepiest Easter Bunny mask I've ever seen. I don't know how we sat there and didn't just cry, but
Well,
we're little kids.
we got one gardening question and one question that is from Stuart. So Sandra Wade asks, this is the gardening question.
We'll let Jim answer that, and I'll
Oh,
answer
great.
the other one.
I'll give a bad answer.
The oh, Jay's mic's still on. Yeah,
Jay's going to the bathroom.
yeah. Sorry. All right. Sandra Wade asks, gardening question: does cornmeal kill weeds? We need to tell Jay about how to turn his mic off.
Let me tell you something about cornmeal. Cornmeal is an additive in like preen that you put down on your garden to keep, it's an additive that's put into preen as an inert substitute, but preen is put down to kill weed seeds before they germinate. And one of the biggest corn places that was along the river where the Greater Sterling Development Corporation took that building and moved it out into the industrial park, which we are landscaping this year. That's exactly what they did. They ground up corn cobs into like cornmeal dust or whatever, and they sold it to whoever makes preen, and they used it in that there. I've never heard of cornmeal killing weeds.
Yeah.
And
So
Jay, next time you need to turn your mic off when you go to the bathroom.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So I'm an enormous dork, but I will tell you that, yeah, University of Iowa researchers were actually researching a completely unrelated subject when it came to cornmeal, and determined that it was a particularly effective pre-emergent herbicide. So
Really?
yeah, it was.
Maybe that's why they put it in with preen in, because that's what
it was.
preen is.
It was an unexpected discovery. They were conducting an entirely different experiment, and they determined that cornmeal works. So look at that. I answered a gardening question.
Wow, I learned something
A
new
lawyer
because I
answered
didn't
a
know
gardening
shit.
write
I
that
thought
down.
it was an ingredient.
Wow.
Check him off. Yeah, he's hired. We
do we
need some. You need.
There you go.
Can
We
you
need
put-
to come up with some sort of laws or something.
Yeah.
Some sort of the proper defense strategy.
You start 9 o'clock Monday morning. Can you put mulch down?
Oh no,
I'll
no,
take
you don't
him.
want me gardening.
I will take him.
I have no talent when it comes to that. I could not do it.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
there's,
sure you
there's
could,
no
sure you
talent
could.
for putting mulch down. It's real easy.
All right.
Well, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about. Well, I shouldn't say. I didn't know anything about landscaping. I'd done my own at home, okay, at different places at different times through my life. But when I started working for Bud, I didn't.
Sure.
I didn't know everything that there was to know. I still don't. You probably never.
Well, I don't either. Look,
Neither
I
do
didn't
I.
know that. And University, you said Iowa State?
University of Iowa.
Oh, yeah. See, Iowa State's better. Dr. Buck was there. What's the other question?
All right. So Stuart Corsa.
Oh, this guy's an asshole.
Oh no.
I'm telling you, Jim.
Oh dear.
This guy is.
No, he's
really-
not. He's a
he
real good
thinks
fr- he's a
Ma-
good friend.
First of all, he thinks he's Mark Twain.
He is Mark Twain.
Oh shit. I have to see Stuart tomorrow.
Okay,
Unfortunately.
well, he says, how about explaining to some where their constitutional rights end and private rights begin?
Well, Stuart would have to be more specific in his question for me to answer it intelligently.
There you go, Stuart.
There you go, Stuart.
Start
See,
thinking.
there you go. See,
Start
typical
thinking.
Stuart question.
Privacy rights are extraordinarily important. They're actually in the Constitution. So, quite frankly, Stuart sounds like a very nice man, and I appreciate the question.
Stuart
but
is.
his question is, where does the Constitution end and privacy begin? Privacy begins in the Constitution.
Right.
So yeah, what
Interesting. Okay.
Stewart's are one of our good friends. He plays, and he does look like Mark Twain when he does play.
Does he?
Oh
Does he?
yeah.
It's a really great question. I like it, but actually, we find our right of privacy embedded within constitutional protections. I mean, it's right there.
Well, it's not as a cut and dry A or B example, or as much as like my free speech rights, as opposed to, well, that doesn't mean you can't get fired for something that you said. Believe
Sure.
me, I was on the radio. I know all about it.
Sure.
That question,
No, and
they overlap.
It's vitally important that we protect privacy. You know, and Stewart's question might relate to like the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unlawful
Sure.
search and seizure. We think of that in the criminal context, the officer requesting to search your home or your vehicle, and whether the officer has a right to do so. But in a civil context, I fight a privacy battle every single day. And by every single day, I mean every single day. And I'll tell you how it works out. And maybe Stewart didn't mean to bring out this much of a conversation, but I represent people every day who have been injured in motor vehicle crashes, in very serious incidents, tragic incidents. And over again, you get insurance companies and defense counsel seeking any and all medical records of any and all kind from the beginning of time until now. So if you're 70 years old and you have the misfortune of being involved in a motor vehicle crash, a defense lawyer might be asking for whether or not you had diaper rash in infancy. And so every day we fight the battle in my law firm against the invasion of someone's medical privacy.
Sure.
Certainly you're entitled, if we're making a claim for personal injuries, defense is entitled to investigate the claim and the nature of those injuries that are alleged within the complaint, but it doesn't mean that they're entitled to know about a chest cold 30 years ago or a suspicious rash 40 years ago. And why they think they're entitled to that because my client had the misfortune of being involved in a crash is also extraordinarily
Well, is that
reasonable.
kind of like what's happening up with George Floyd? Kind of like them saying about his drug use from years ago, or his drug use, that's what killed him, not the.
Well, the issue that has been raised by the defense, one of the issues that's been raised by the defense in the absolutely awful George Floyd case is the issue of what was the proximate cause of his death.
Right.
And so the defense, as defenses do, is attempting to make the argument that there is some alternate proximate cause, that it was carbon monoxide from the tailpipe, or that he had drugs in his system that were the cause of his death. But juries are amazing. They really are at sifting through the nonsense to get to the truth. And I have an abiding faith in our jury system. And that jury can watch that video and come to the conclusion as to what killed George Floyd.
Right. And the defense made I think you'll agree, big mistake when they asked the young lady who had videotaped the viral version of that video, how it had changed her life. They were trying to get to something that was like, you benefited from videotaping this and it changed your life. And that opened up a whole can of worms
About how it actually did change her life.
about how it did change her life, and then allowed them to talk about the emotions that were being felt by not just her, but every other witness that was there on the scene.
You bet.
Big. That was, am I right? Was that a big drop kick across the floor?
Well, trial lawyers should always be very careful about asking questions to which they don't already know the answers. And on cross-examination, I remember early on in my law school education, on cross-examination, confine the witness to very strictly confined, restrictive, and limiting questions, as opposed to allowing a witness, particularly a very effective and persuasive witness for the other side, to go into a narrative answer. And I've noticed that during this trial. I haven't watched all components of the trial, but what I've watched of it, I thought that there were some cross-examination questions that gave a lot of license to witnesses that I wouldn't give. If I'm asking questions on cross-examination, I want a yes or no, and I want nothing more than that. And we face that too. Jay, I'd love to cross-examine you. You know what? That maybe we'll come back on sometime and it'll be
Oh, that'd
Jim
be
Mertes
awesome.
cross-examines Jay Pauley. What do you think?
That would be fun.
But I do
I
a
am
lot
screwed.
of
I'm
you know
so
one of
screwed,
the, one of
ladies
the
and
tells.
gentlemen.
Jay,
Don't
one
let
of,
this happen, please, please.
one of the tells
Plead the
of,
fifth.
of a witness is you'll get a witness who will say, I don't understand your question. And the question is the most simple question in the world. Was the light red when you entered the intersection? I don't understand what you're asking me. Well, do you speak the English language? Yes. Did you graduate from high school? Yes. And you read the English language? Yes.
If you don't understand that question,
you
probably
would-
shouldn't have been driving the car.
You would consider yourself to have a decent vocabulary, wouldn't you? Yes, I would. Okay, I'm going to ask my question again, and you tell me when I get to that big word that confused you. Was the light red when you entered the intersection?
A lawyer with snark. That's why I like this guy.
Oh, snark is an important component of the
Oh
job.
my
yeah.
God.
It is. Although it's not a proper objection. It would be fun though, wouldn't it? Objection. Snark.
Stuart
Snark.
did actually clarify when we were poking fun at him. He said, as in, it's against. He's got a big thumbs. As in, it's against my right to wear a mask in this store. So I think what he's getting at is, if a business is requiring you to wear a mask, and then there's individuals that have come in and said that's against my rights. I think that was his clarification.
Is Stuart saying that he thinks it's against it's a violation of his rights to require him to wear a mask in a store?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
We know him well enough.
No,
That's-
He's
not
asking
coming from that.
for those people who do think it's a violation of their rights.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. In fact, I'll tell you what, I was thinking about doing this for an advertising slogan for the law firm, but I thought better of it. I was talked out of it. But I was thinking, have you been asked by a private business to wear a mask when you enter? Do you wish, or do you have questions about your constitutional rights associated with that request? If so, please feel free to call our law firm and we'll be happy to tell you how damn stupid you are. I know that's a little bit strong, but I gotta tell you, a business that requires people to wear a mask in the middle of a pandemic where you have a deadly and highly transmissible virus is conducting itself responsibly.
yeah.
And if you don't wear a mask, well then go back and do some soul searching and perhaps some reading of the science.
Yeah.
I've heard firsthand at a business, not a local business, regional business. I heard firsthand an employee, and this was just a few, 2-3 weeks ago. An employee at the door asked a person to put a mask on, and he said, "That's not the law anymore." And I thought, wow, for such a short sentence and to be horribly wrong twice.
Yeah, he's wrong on the science and wrong on the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, it never
Just
was
in
a
that
law.
just in that little in that little short
I just tell everybody that when we were kids, no shoes, no shirt, no service
Sure.
isn't any different. There's no difference in that saying.
No, there's not. And there's no difference in the principle either.
No.
Private business can impose whatever rules within reason, with non-discriminatory rules it wants, but quite frankly, so can government when it comes to this issue. You can absolutely be required to wear a mask in order to enter a premises.
And that, I do it. I mean, I don't care where I go up in anything.
Yeah.
And I think Jay said this earlier that he would time himself. And I remember going in to get a bottle of scotch in this huge freaking store. I knew right where it was at. And I had my I went. I go, okay.
Would you hold your breath?
No, I had a mask.
Okay.
4 minutes.
Oh, nice.
I went, got it, and paid. I went to the self-checkout, put my cash out, and I called her, and I said, 4 minutes. She goes, what? 4 minutes, I got your bottle of scotch.
Just make a game out of it.
I did.
I do.
One of the games. It's one of the variables.
Westworld season 3?
Is it on?
No. Season 3 that you watched too, that I went and got and watched and then gave it to you to watch. 4.5 minutes. 4.5
Nice.
minutes. In, out, 4.5 minutes.
That's why I tell her once in a while, she goes, oh, and I go, well, I know where I can go get it, because we'll do curbside pickup with groceries. I said, well, I can go in the store, I can get it. I know exactly where it's at. And she goes, all right. So, I am. I mean, I'm literally, and then once in a while, I'll go, you know, like somebody will be there at the checkout, and you know, this is where the mask is good because I'm going like, come on and get the money out of your wallet. You know, I'm all prepared. You know,
Sure.
I'm ready. I'm out, and then I always disinfect my hands. I mean, that may be anal, because I know that I don't know how much of the stuff has been transmitted from, you know, like this or whatever like that. But if
Well-
I go in anywhere, I'll wash my hands. But when I get in my vehicle, I've got the alcohol spray. I immediately wash my hands. When I get a coffee, like I'll go to Airplay. I went to Airplay today and got a coffee before I sprayed downtown, and got a coffee from the girl, and I mask up and I get my coffee. I come out and I got my own little thing there, and I open the coffee, I pour it in there, and I throw that away. And before I put my lid on, I spray my hands and wipe with alcohol. Now I take my lid and put it on like that, and then I can pull my mask down, and I'm ready to go. I just do that every day. I mean, it's just,
Yep. Yep. No, I think they've pretty much debunked that. I mean, there's not a lot of fomite transmission of it.
I know,
you-
but
you-
still,
you
I just-
you can't
it's
be
just
careful. You
something
still
that
gotta
I-
wash your hands.
Well, two things. I don't care because I've gone this far. I've gone over a year. I haven't got sick.
Yep.
I've been doing it that way,
So
so I'm
something's
going to
working.
keep on doing it.
Yep, I agree.
And the other thing too was one of the things that Dr. Coons talked about when he was on the show.
about the guy picking the beer
I
bottles up
cleaning up the beer bottles at a party,
and he got COVID.
and he got COVID, and I don't know what verbiage he used. I don't remember if it was pretty sure or seemed
Right,
to be or
yeah.
whatever, but
Wow.
that it was from cleaning up the beer bottles and touching.
Where somebody might have, you know.
Sure. Well, I have no intention of cleaning up your beer bottle now.
Well,
You take
that's
that-
all the
you
time we
take your
have. for
water
sipping
bottle
to
with
it.
you, or throw it in that recyclable
Oh, I'll take
thing.
it with me.
I don't have to.
Sure.
Oh gosh.
We clean up after ourselves.
Yeah, we have a recycling.
Sometimes it's a harder job than others.
So how long we been going?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Oh
No?
shit!
Oh, well,
Boy, that's a long night.
this has been fun.
It has been fun.
Well, if there isn't a lot of questions, we can wrap it up. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I really am glad that we got to know you a little better. I mean,
It was
you and I
fun.
talk on the phone, and that's about it.
So this was a lot of fun.
Well, from my standpoint, knowing you for several years, and
You have a different
even
opinion
then,
of him now?
no. Well, we'll talk
Put you
after.
on the
Yeah, I
spot.
was going to say,
We'll talk after.
Bud and Lisa, it's been really nice with the two of you. Jay, no, this has been great. This has been great.
I wonder if John Sacchetti is still with us.
Yeah,
Oh, and he is, and he came in queue before I had to prompt him.
John's our sign off.
John is our sign off. He says, great show, really enjoyed it. Peace and love, all of you. So
Oh, thank you, John.
that's
Thanks,
our
John.
cue.
John.
All right,
All right,
thanks
we're
so
gonna
much
go.
for joining us.
I don't
Thank
know
you,
what's
Jim.
going on
Thank you.
Thank you
next
so much.
Friday. Thank you, Jim. This
All
is
right.
fun.
Great. Thank you.
Great. We'll see you next Friday, you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.
Take care.